everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Consulting Corner. I'm Kelly Yulhorn, and joining me today is Aurora Berg, Executive Consultant here at Kite Tech. Aurora has assisted many agencies who have migrated over to Applied Epic. So today we are going to discuss some of the main questions that she has been asked during a migration, as well as some tips that could assist your agency if you are thinking about or will soon be migrating over to Applied Epic. So Aurora, one of the first questions that we want to ask you is, how do you clean up your data?
Okay, well, some of your data is easier to clean when you're going through the migration process, but there are things that you can do now. So close your open claims, close your open activities that you don't need, close your binders if you have open binders, and then start cleaning up your companies. If you're not using that company anymore, inactivate it. Clean up your employees if they're no longer there, inactivate them. Your brokers, ditto, and your vendors. Then take a look at your policy types, your activity codes, and your transaction codes. If you have duplicate activity codes, for example, I have miscellaneous, I have email, I have inquiry, I have note. Those things could mean the same thing. So make sure that you don't have any codes that can be misinterpreted. Run an activity report to see which codes are currently in use, and the ones that aren't being used, you can inactivate. That'll just make up your cleanup so much easier when you go live.
Great. And how much time should an agency allow for migration?
Well, Applied usually recommends at least 6 months, but if you have enough time, 6 to 9 months is what we recommend. The reason I say that is because it depends on how much time the people on your implementation team have to work on this project. If they have a 9-to-5 job, they're going to be working on this before 9 and after 5, unless you can free them up with some of their workload. So the migration for 6 to 9 months relies on having your implementation team with a lighter workload than normal, or have at least one person that's dedicated to just working on this internal project. If you don't have the bandwidth to allow for that, you need to allow more time.
Great. And who should be on the implementation team?
You want to have a variety of folks on your implementation team. You want to have some people from management, because they're going to be able to tell you what they're reporting on and what the key performance indicators are. That way you can build them into your configure and you can build them into your workflows. And then you want to have representatives from each department. So the people that have the daily hands-on experience with your current system, that way they can make input or make comments on the decisions that you're making, how it affects them, and whether it's feasible or not.
Great. And what proactive approaches can an agency take to put themselves ahead of the game during an implementation?
Well, one of the key things is standardize your workflows in your current system. If everyone's doing it the same way, your data is going to be a lot easier to move to Epic during your conversion. So for example, if it is a numeric field like phone number, make sure people are only using it for phone numbers. A lot of these systems will allow you to put alphanumerics in the wrong places. Epic is not as forgiving, and Epic likes numbers in number places and alpha in alpha places. So make sure everyone has that kind of standardization. Stay on the Applied timeline. When you first migrate, Applied will give you a, they call it a PAR, P-A-R, a proactive readiness scorecard. And it'll have your dates that are due for your samples, for your changes, and when your training should be. Make sure you stay on their timeline. If you get off or you're late, what happens is you lose your implementation team and you're going to lose your continuity. You want to have the same data conversion people. You want to have the same trainers as much as possible. When they first schedule this, they're able to do that. But if you are late in hitting any of your timeline, then they have to scramble and find anyone that's open. So Another advice I would give is to utilize Apply Client Network. Go onto the forums, read some of the questions that people before you have put there for their migrations, get advice, talk to the other agencies, see what they would advise you to do when you're doing a conversion to Epic. Take some of the webinars. Applied Net has a lot of handouts that would be beneficial, and make sure you do your Applied University.
Absolutely. And finally, should agencies hire a consultant?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. Are you good with self-training? Can you do the Applied Client Networks and understand why you're doing what you're doing? Do you understand the consequences of decisions that you're making? If you need help with this, I would advise you to use a consultant. The Applied implementation team can spend an hour each week with you to explain what you need to do. If you need more time than an hour to understand the information, then you're either going to have to get a consultant to explain it to you, or you're going to have to make sure that you have enough time to do the Applied University and understand what you're doing.
Right. And additionally, there are elements that we like to call critical success factors that we deem to be crucial for a successful migration. And those could be, like mentioned before, management buy-in and support. Management must be on board and lead the change for a migration, as well as thoroughly reviewing and testing your sample data. So this is a crucial step. You want to make sure that the data is accurate before going live. And then understanding the consequences of your configuration decisions. Certain settings, like in your structure, can't be changed after they are used. So you want to make sure you are setting those up correctly, and that's very important. And then, like we mentioned before, your agency's internal implementation team is very important. Like Aurora mentioned, you want someone from management as well as someone from each department to help make those decisions. So we know that migrating to Applied Epic can be a daunting task with a lot of steps to make it a successful transition. So we hope these tips can give you some insight on how you can set yourself up for a successful migration. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.